This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Good afternoon. We are doing it live right here, getting right down to business with the news-driven hour right after Ben Shapiro and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks closing mostly higher today on this Giving Tuesday with the technology-heavy NASDAQ hitting another record high, while the big tech stocks helped the S&P 500 move to another record high. The S&P 500 closing with a gain of just about 3 points to a record high of 6,050. The NASDAQ up 77 at 19,481. The Dow closed lower by 76 points to 44,705. Big tech names among the strongest performers in the Dow today, but the index was still lower at the close. Shares of Apple, Amazon, NVIDIA all moving higher. Still, the Dow was down slightly, dipping as most stocks in the blue chip equities index did trade lower today. The price of oil posting its biggest one-day dollar and percentage gain in about 2 weeks. Some traders betting now that OPEC and allies will further delay a partial unwinding of production cuts when they meet later this week. We did see the price of oil in New York move higher by $1.84 to $69.39 a barrel. And Brent crude in London closed up nearly $2 at $73.62 a barrel. Meanwhile, the government debt of selling off today, pushing the yield in the 10-year note to slightly higher. The yield in the 10-year note settling at 4.22%. That's the one that impacts the fixed rate mortgage rates. Pardon my French. It looks like the bond yields moved as France braced for a no-confidence vote in the prime minister's government that could occur as soon as Wednesday. That is tomorrow. Today is Giving Tuesday, and we'll talk about that later this hour with Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission, the number one organization helping the homeless in Los Angeles, with the Just Help One campaign now underway. But first, joining us live now, John NAJARIAN. Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks, co-founder of Market Rebellion, also author of numerous books, including his latest one, It's Not an Option. John NAJARIAN, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
No, I always have to answer when you guys are calling, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very, very much, and do a great job across the board on all of your platforms these days. So thanks for taking the time to be with us here, John NAJARIAN. First of all, you track the cryptos closely. We've seen Bitcoin flirt with nearly 100,000 and still is doing that. Let's get right to the exciting stuff here and give us your view of what's happening in the crypto world here right off the bat.
Well, obviously, people are coming to believe that the fact that we've got a crypto-friendly administration coming in is going to be very positive for cryptos, virtually across the board. There will be some that perhaps didn't paper themselves up properly when they were selling their initial coin offerings or ICOs. But other than that, it seems that most will be getting a lot of support from the incoming head of the SEC and or CFTC, depending which side they end up deciding governs those assets, Frank. But I think overall we're going to be seeing a lot of interest in the sector. That's played out so far, certainly since November 5th, and even previous to that, with the anticipation of what like I say, a crypto-friendly administration would do. So Solana, Ethereum, a host of the fast-moving coins like Doge, which, of course, mimics Elon Musk didn't start that one, but he certainly has a branch of the government, it seems, that's going to be going after efficiency and so forth. And for that reason, I think that coin continues to get a pretty good lift every time Elon's out there talking about government efficiency.
They're live with John NAJARIAN. We see a Bitcoin right now hovering just below 96,000 here, up about 300. Ethereum hovering at around 36.20, and Doge just 41 cents here. Let's take a look at some of these predictions now that we've seen. These write-ups, given the bullish enthusiasm here for the new administration under President Trump coming in pro-crypto. Have you adjusted your forecast on where Bitcoin goes from here, for example?
Well, I did as it became more and more certain that the former president, number 45, DJT, was going to win, and I went from 85 to 100. It seems that we're flirting certainly with 100,000 per Bitcoin, but when you look at the performance of some of these other assets, like Doge, which, like I say, doesn't really have a strong, certainly not the same purpose that Bitcoin or even Ethereum has, but nonetheless, this has doubled or even tripled from the just below, let's say, perhaps it was near 15 cents. And now, as you say, DOGE is trading 41 cents, was up 171 cents. I'm sorry, 171% in the past month. So that's clearly outperforming even a monster like Bitcoin. And certainly people, every time, like I say, that Elon's in the news, which is almost every day, today it was a little bit about SpaceX and perhaps some of the insiders getting an opportunity to take some profits. And the valuation is dizzying for SpaceX. It was, I think, what I was seeing investment banks talk about was $350 billion for SpaceX. And even that, I think, is undervaluing the company. But nonetheless, that is just that would make it obviously somewhere close to a top 10 or top 15 asset in the world, if indeed they're able to sell some of the insiders' positions at that kind of a valuation. It's remarkable, if nothing else.
You're referring to SpaceX in talks to sell insider shares in a transaction valuing the rocket and satellite maker, which right now is still based here in Southern California, at about $350 billion. And looks like Bloomberg and other outlets reporting this now, according to people familiar with the situation, a massive jump highlighting the post-election gains across Elon Musk's business empire. So we are keeping a close watch on that. Any other insights here of a possible offering here by SpaceX? Do you think it might come to market coming up anytime soon?
I do think so. I think ultimately Mr. Musk will tap the public markets, because it's one thing, and as you know very, very well, Frank, when we talk about valuations, they're not necessarily selling a majority of the company at all at that level. They are simply saying that, for instance, 6 months ago, they were valuing the company at approximately $200 to $250 billion. And now some of the insiders have apparently told Mr. Musk that they would like the opportunity to get some of that liquidity. So they've hired an investment bank to go out and solicit interest, and the interest was significant. So they may be able to raise at that $350 billion valuation, even if it might only be 3 to 5% of the company being sold at that level. Nonetheless, that is still just I'm sure, a mouth-watering or certainly an eye-watering valuation for something that doesn't generate nearly that kind of revenue, but the potential for not just the space travel, but also for the satellites up there that he's just gotten a go-ahead for, as far as some of the telecom access that he might have over the next, let's say, 1 to 3 years, meaning that he could be a direct competitor with Verizon, with T-Mobile, with AT&T for the communication via cell phone to those low-flying satellites that he's got That's a game changer. And I think that's put SpaceX valuation over the $1 trillion mark when that finally comes to fruition. So as crazy as it is to see a $350 billion valuation at this time for SpaceX, the future is truly very, very bright for that company.
On the air live with Dr. J. John NAJARIAN, live here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Well, what about the market here, John NAJARIAN? The NASDAQ at a record high today, the S&P 500 at a record high, the Dow, which now includes the magnificent one, NVIDIA, pulling back over the past couple of days. What about this market here?
Well, we've seen just an awful lot of information thrown at the investors, whether they're institutional investors or retail, things like super microcomputer. This is clearly one of the beneficiaries of the AI, artificial intelligence buying frenzy. And unfortunately for them, there were a lot of questions about their accounting practices. They lost their auditor, and that's never a good thing. And you and I have discussed that in the past. But the past is the past. Now they've apparently got an auditor that, as well as an independent review of their books that says that there was no fraud, there was no stealing or anything else that people, some have said that they were recognizing revenue in a way that wasn't consistent with what other firms have chosen to recognize revenue. I understand that part, and that's not the same as fraud, however. So they did suffer. The shares came down from over $100 a share after a 1-for-10 split, all the way down to $17.25, I think. But today, the stock was moving through 41 to the upside. There was a lot of interest in the options over the $50 strike. So that's just basically 2 weeks from the time that it was trading below $18 a share to rebound pretty significantly. So that and CRM, Salesforce, those earnings came out after the bell today. They were spectacular. They didn't beat on the bottom line profit, so I don't want to, when I say spectacular, I meant the revenue and the guidance. And the stock is up, I think, about 10% in the post, and that's a big $300 stock that is, in the hundreds of billions of dollars valuation. So that's quite a move in the after hours for that particular Mr. Benioff's company.
On there live with John NAJARIAN. And John, let me ask you this. On the stocks that track cryptos, the ETFs, BITO and the IBIT and then the miners and all of that, any thoughts on those names?
I like all of those names just as I like the digital assets. But as we've seen even with, this year's darling, NVIDIA, they don't go straight up. I could throw a bunch of other Wall Street expressions at it, but instead I'll just say that, we see pullbacks all the time in the markets. You just described one in NVIDIA where, it had broken back below 140. It's threatening that level again now after a little bit of a rebound. So I think this is something that we see on a pretty regular basis is, the herd moves, the herd meaning, the fast money traders on Wall Street move in one direction very quickly. It's not that they all get out at the same time, but many of them start to take profits, lighten up, move to the sidelines, and then another sector or another darling catches their eye. So in terms of Mara, Marathon Digital, or Riot Blockchain, or MicroStrategy, any of the Coinbase, any of the stocks that are really tied to the upside and or downside of Bitcoin in particular and the crypto markets to a lesser extent, they're going to see those ups and downs. Today, it was a down day for those. Tomorrow may be just the opposite. That is one of the reasons that it trades at double to triple the volatility of the S&P, that it just moves that dramatically and very quickly. So I don't view that as a negative. And instead, if you're somebody who is a believer in things like Coinbase, I certainly am, or MicroStrategy, again, I certainly am, then I think you use a little patience rather than having that fear of missing out known as FOMO, and you wait for the stock to come to certain levels where you think that's a better purchase than chasing it to a significant all-time high.
The post-election rally is on. How much more do you think this has to run here? We're heading toward the end of the year here now. Everyone's expecting a Santa Claus rally, right? So how much more runway does this have?
Well, certainly the retail sales numbers were very strong, stronger than I expected by far. I think it's partly because of the buy now, pay later crowd, people that are using Klarna or Affirm or Sezzle or any of these buy now, pay later versions of access to things like Macy's or Target or Best Buy or whatever it might be, that consumers that are pretty much stretched are still able to make use of those to drive some of these holiday sales numbers that we've seen that were just fantastically bullish numbers, really across the board. I haven't seen too many of these retailers say that they were not happy with the Black Friday and on into the weekend and Cyber Monday numbers. These look pretty spectacular. So I would continue to be a believer that we could see that Santa Claus rally continue, and that we're likely to see a little jockeying as the president's incoming president 47's nominees come before the Senate. But I think those are a lesser driver right now than are the economic numbers like the ones we mentioned about the retail sales.
All right, before I let you off the hook here, John NAJARIAN, looks like Santa's helper is getting the job done. Any other specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Well, it certainly seems, Frank, that we're going to see CRM, Salesforce, push a lot of volume and interest into that tech sector again. So they're obviously relationship management, CRM firms tend to be something that people in sales are really paying close attention to how well those companies are doing. And the fact that the biggest one of them all, CRM, Salesforce, reported these kinds of numbers, I think bodes very well for those guys, for SAP, for a number of companies in that space over the next, at least over the next several days, if not weeks.
Well, fantastic, John. Thank you very much for taking the call here and covering all the bases as always. We appreciate it. That is Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks, including his own these days. Do a great job on X, formerly known as Twitter. Everybody could follow you there, of course, and on your show that you do. Also, John NAJARIAN's co-founder of Market Rebels, and as well as, he's done a lot. So we appreciate it, John. And of course, author, too. The name of the book is It's Not an Option. John NAJARIAN, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you, Frank. Have a great night.
Thanks a million. Thanks again. Thank you. Out to the freeways we go now on 790 KABC.
Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Mixed finish for the stock market, but both the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 closed at all-time highs. The Dow coming down 76 points at 44,705. The NASDAQ at a record high of 77 19,481. The S&P 500 of 3 at 6,050. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.24%. We see a Bitcoin up about 300 now at 95,991. Ethereum up 19 to 3,633, and Doge at 41 cents. Looks like Salesforce coming out with better than expected earnings. The stock has popped about $33 to $365 and change in after-hours trading. And now the latest news for you here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. The geopolitical spotlight has shifted to South Korea today and China after South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law in South Korea. Thousands of protesters took to the streets alongside the leading opposition party, urging the members of parliament there to head to the National Assembly and vote it down following a dramatic night in which South Korean soldiers tried to block members of parliament from entering the parliament building. Lawmakers unanimously adopted a bill rejecting the martial law declaration, prompting the president to backtrack there in South Korea. Quite a night in South Korea. Also, China has responded to U.S. chip sanctions today, banning the exports of key minerals to the U.S. Joining us live now on all these important matters is Gordon Chang, China expert and author of The Coming Collapse of China, the Great U.S.-China Tech War, and his latest book, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon Chang, thank you very much for coming to the line. Of course, we've been following your feed today on X, formerly known as Twitter as well, at Gordon G. Chang. Gordon Chang, what's your reaction, first of all, to the dramatic developments in South Korea overnight?
This was a big setback for South Korean democracy. Just everyone in the preceding months thought that the imposition of martial law that had been rumored just could not occur. People did not want to go back to the 1980s with the military dictatorships and martial law. And inexplicably, President Yoon declared martial law. He didn't do very much planning, apparently, because after he had surrounded the National Assembly building with soldiers, there were sufficient assembly members inside so they could have a vote. They rescinded martial law, as they constitutionally have the right to do, and President Yoon backed down. This was one of the worst days possible for democracy in South Korea.
Explain what happened there. Supposedly there's a pro-North Korean element there in South Korea. Tell us what we need to know about all this.
Yeah. President Yoon is a conservative. The other camp are the progressive, so-called leftists, and they're now represented by the Democratic Party of Korea. The last time the Democratic Party of Korea held the presidency, which was just preceding Yoon, they had a president, Moon Jae-in, who was very pro-North Korea. And many people thought that South Korea had sort of gotten past those days. But now I'm sure that in the following weeks, we are going to see the Democratic Party of Korea be resurgent. And this would not be good for either the alliance with the U.S. or peace and stability in the region, because Moon Jae-in and his party are just very much in Pyongyang's camp.
Where do things stand now? Apparently the martial law has been rescinded, but what is the situation, as far as we know, on the streets of Seoul and other major cities there in South Korea?
Well, the troops have withdrawn, and probably protests will continue for a little while because the South Korean electorate is volatile. They often take to the streets. This will die down, but the problem for the conservative camp in South Korea is that people are going to remember this for quite some time. And that means President Yoon's faction is going to be even less powerful than it was before. Before these events, Yoon's approval rating was around 17%. So it can't sink much further, but nonetheless, any loss of popularity is going to undermine his ability to implement his agenda.
Very interesting. Remember, Reuters had reported a month or two ago leaflets produced by North Korea attacked Yoon and his wife, scattered on the streets of Seoul, apparently carried across the border via balloon. Does China have a hand in any of this?
Probably not, except, though, that China does support North Korea. And the North Korean regime would not exist but for support from China. But I don't think China had a hand in the balloons. These balloons carried propaganda, as you pointed out. They also carried excrement. And really, this isn't China's style, but this is North Korea's style. And North Korea has continually sent these balloons across the demilitarized zone, which separates the two Koreas.
How dangerous is the situation here? Is there a risk of this flaring up into to a hot conflict here?
I don't think we're going to see a hot conflict. Right now, remember, 12,800 of North Korea's finest troops are in the Kursk region of Russia fighting against Ukraine. And apparently Russia wants more North Korean troops. So that does undermine Kim Jong-un's ability to wage war against the South. But we also have to remember that over the course of decades, unusual events have occurred between both Koreas. And so we can never discount fully the possibility of a full-scale war.
On there live with Gordon Chang. And let me ask you the other big story here that is getting our attention. China banning exports of some rare minerals to the United States. Tensions over trade heating up. I know you follow this very, very closely. This after the U.S. had issued new restrictions on exports of certain semiconductor chips and equipment to China earlier this week. What's your reaction to this latest development?
Yeah, China's export ban on those three rare earths was sort of expected. We know, however, that in the past, China's export bans on rare earths have not worked. So, for instance, China started doing this as early as 2010, and the Japanese found ways around the export ban, and clearly China gave up within a couple months. You know, yes, we have to buy, but remember also that China has to sell, and we will be able to obtain Chinese rare earths one way or another.
On there live with Gordon Chang, and all this happening as President-elect Trump is set to retake the White House based on the choices he's made for his cabinet and other developments recently. How's this shaping up here, U.S.-China relations under President Trump this time around?
Well, relations between the U.S. and China in the last years of the Biden administration have not been warm and friendly. And when Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, met President Biden in Peru a week ago at the APEC summit, it was clear that the Chinese were very assertive when they publicly issued 4 red lines to the United States. So Trump will be inheriting a situation which is clearly deteriorating. And probably the situation will continue to deteriorate because President Trump is imposing tariffs, as he said, and that means there's going to be Chinese retaliation. But we got to remember that the United States needs to do something about the fentanyl problem, which is the reason that Trump is imposing these tariffs. And so at least we should be welcoming the idea that the U.S. is actually going to try to do something effective on the flow of this deadly opioid into the United States.
Do you expect either the Biden administration or the incoming Trump administration to make a move in reaction to what China just announced regarding these rare elements?
Well, there are so many disagreements right now. It's hard to sometimes figure out what's in reaction to what. But clearly the United States and China have interests which are incompatible. The United States is very concerned about belligerent and provocative Chinese activities across a range of issues, including fentanyl, including trade. And so we're going to see these tensions continue to escalate. And so right now, I think the prognosis is that it's going to be a very difficult time between Beijing and Washington.
Gordon Chang, China expert, authored The Coming Collapse of China, The Great U.S.-China Tech War, and his latest book, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. He's on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Gordon G. Chang. Gordon Chang, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Out to the freeways we go now, here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. Today is Giving Tuesday, what's become a global day of global generosity to inspire charitable giving each year on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It's the season of Thanksgiving and giving now. With homelessness in Los Angeles still at or near all-time highs, you might be wondering how you can help. Well, the Union Rescue Mission in Los Angeles has launched the Just Help One campaign. It's getting a lot of attention today on Giving Tuesday. And Joining us live now is Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission. By the way, the Union Rescue Mission includes the main facility on Skid Row in downtown L.A., as well as Hope Gardens in the San Fernando Valley in Sylmar, and Angela's House in South L.A. Mark Hood, thank you very much for coming to the line on this Giving Tuesday.
Frank, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful to have you with us, and it was wonderful to be with you at the kickoff of the Just Help One campaign when we did the Over the Edge event recently, the last time we were speaking behind live microphones. Today is Giving Tuesday, and what's your message to the business community and church groups and others out there who want to support the Union Rescue Mission today?
Well, the message is, as we all know, the homeless situation in Los Angeles County is a big issue, and sometimes it seems overwhelming. And that's the reason we started the Just Help One campaign, because sometimes we're so busy looking at the numbers, we're not realizing that we truly are making a difference. And Union Rescue Mission is one of those organizations that's truly making a difference. We house, 13 to 1,500 people under our roof every single night. We feed and clothe and offer medical assistance to, up to 2,000 people a day. And it's more than that. We're more than just taking people off the street. We provide programs that are transforming their lives. In 2024 alone, we've seen hundreds of people moved into permanent housing, graduate our programs, reunited with families. And so those are very positive things. Those are lasting impacts that we're making together. But the message that we need to get out today on Giving Tuesday is we cannot do it without the help of the LA community. I'm not sure if people truly understand, but we're one of the largest rescue missions in the U.S., and we do it with little to no government support. All of what we do is because of donations that come from individuals and businesses and churches in the community. And without those donations, we cannot provide those life transformation services that we provide. And the message today is we need your help. Donations are down. We're in a critical time of the year. We're coming into the winter season. Nights are going to get colder. We want to continue offering the services we offer, but the donations are down. That's just a fact, and we truly need your help. So this time of year, when giving is so critical, we really ask for your support so we can continue offering those life transformation opportunities for the men, women, and children that are on the streets in LA County.
Especially heartbreaking when we're talking about children on the streets. And in fact, you have that beautiful facility, Hope Gardens, in the San Fernando Valley that takes care of homeless women and children as well as seniors, right?
That's correct. And, we just did a video asking the children at Hope Gardens, what they were thankful for before Thanksgiving. And it was amazing the answers we got. They were thankful for their moms. They were thankful for being in a safe place. They were thankful for being off the streets. And your donations, that's what they do. We're the only homeless facility in LA that takes women and children in and gives them shelter and gives them transformational programs. We make sure the kids get to school and back every day. We have tutoring programs. We have daycare facilities for the moms. And that is all through your donations. So yes, getting those women and children off the streets, getting them into safe and sober living facilities, helping them restore their lives, reunite with their families, that's what your donations do.
Especially today on Giving Tuesday, I understand you'll be matching the donations that come in today?
Yes, we will. We've got an anonymous donor that has said, hey, we're going to match the gifts that come in. So now then your gifts are multiplied times 2. So it's the perfect time of the year to dig deep and give back to the community. And again, you're giving to an organization, Union Rescue Mission, that is such a good steward of your donations. We talked about the transformational programs that we have that are taking people off the streets permanently, putting them in permanent housing, getting them into living wage jobs, reuniting them with families. But you should also know that we're worthy of your donation. We have a platinum rating on Charity Navigator. 86 cents of every dollar goes back into the people we serve. And those donations you give today are multiplied times 2 because of the generous donation of an anonymous donor that wants to match those gifts that are coming in.
That's wonderful, and you have the highest possible rating from Charity Navigator, so that's very important to note these days when the homeless spending, especially by the government, is very much under scrutiny. But certainly what you're doing there is working and is really making a difference in the lives of thousands of people here in the Los Angeles area. So tell us more how you got involved with the Union Rescue Mission. You have obviously a very big job here now at the Union Rescue Mission as the CEO.
Well, it's a pretty simple answer on how I got involved. I came here to run a business in Sylmar, California, for an organization, PPG Aerospace, that I was proud to work for 40 years, a great organization. And I got involved as a volunteer. And I fell in love with what the organization does. I saw, and I started with Hope Gardens, our women's and children's facility, and I saw women coming in broken, abused, addicted, forgotten, and I saw them surrounded by the hands and feet of loving people that offered the help and support of a Christ-based facility, making a lasting impact to the lives of these women with their children. And I fell in love with what they do. And what I would ask each one of you to do when you wonder what's happening with your donations, the money you're giving, that woman you see on the street holding that cardboard sign said, please donate money where I can feed my children. You see that man sleeping on the sidewalk or on the bench. You see the people in the tents. Those people are walking through our facility doors every single day. We say no to no one. We offer them safe and sober shelter, and your donations make a permanent and lasting change in their life. So this holiday season, I would ask you to do one simple thing. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, if not me, then who? There's 75,000 people homeless in Los Angeles County, but there's 17 million Angelenos that can make a difference. And if each one of us determined ourselves to just help one, think about the impact we could make. And now is the season, and now is the time, and we need your help.
Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission. Please go to urm.org to help the Union Rescue Mission. Make a donation there, and it'll be matched today on this Giving Tuesday. Mark Hood, thank you very much for sharing the story of the Union Rescue Mission. We wish you all the best. We wish everyone there a Merry Christmas, and thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank. Merry Christmas to you as well, and God bless you all. We appreciate your support and your donations.
Thank you very much. That is Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission, the #1 organization helping the homeless in Los Angeles, with the Just Help One campaign now underway. Again, the website, urm.org. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back tomorrow afternoon with more at 4 right here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
O'Shea Jackson Jr. and TJ Jefferson bring their unique take on sports entertainment with no contest wrestling, with guests like WWE Hall of Famer Eric Bischoff.
You are an excellent villain.
No, I appreciate that.
Did that ever just kind of wear on you sometimes?
The only time it got difficult is when they weren't doing loudly enough. As long as I could get the crowd to hate me, that means we were making money and we were doing things right. So the more the better.
The No Contest Wrestling Podcast, part of the Rich Eisen Podcast Network, wherever you listen.